Ready to, yes, to begin. Fantastic. So hi everyone, we are here at getting started with the application of daily ethical design, and we've selected this topic intentionally with the organizers of SDN New York chapter. So getting started, I would assume that you already have some knowledge or at least thoughts around ethical design application, because usually it's a lot about theory, about books, about how-to articles, but not that much of what exactly you can do, or maybe what exactly you're already doing, which is ethical, but you just don't know about this. And by daily, I mean that you don't have to transform the whole company overnight. We'll be talking about smaller steps and then see how or if they're applicable into your life as a designer, as a creative, as a person who wants to make this world a better place. So I'm Nata Kostenko, and I'm a service designer and a design researcher at Scania. For those of you who don't know, like, we do trucks, we do buses. I work specifically for Innovation Office. So there is this core business of creating transportation means, and I work on the alternative business models, on another income streams creation, and so on, ideating, thinking how to have more of design and design thinking into the company, and so on. I'm based in Sweden. I'm originally from Ukraine. And with design ethics, I'm a rather enthusiast. So I started it as my passion project about a year ago. And then I kept on reading, kept on talking to people, connecting, and so on. So if I don't cover something during today's workshop, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. For whatever resources you might want to, like, I can definitely save you some Googling time since I've been in it for quite some time. I don't like cucumbers, but that's not a fact that is important to today's conversation. It's just something which I find sometimes there are people who also dislike them, and we tend to bond a lot. I've even read a research on how it's explained, like, this weird small coincidences actually unite people. And I'm a former digital nomad. So currently I work the 9-to-5 job. I used to do like digital nomad, living out of the backpack, work on the road. I still have the business that I started back then of presentation design and design research. And now I'm here with you. So before we start with kind of content part of all of this, I suggest we go to Mira real quick and add a couple of post-its on how you feel about ethical design. If you're familiar with Mira, that's fantastic. Usually people at least have been there a couple of times. And let me bring you here to me. So yeah, little check-in, how you feel about ethical design. To add a sticky note, press Ctrl-N or Command-N and just write a couple words, like what you think it is, how you feel about this, what you heard before, if anything, or maybe it's the first time you're attending an event on ethical design. Just a couple like thoughts in and out, and happy to see many guest editors, guest creators, and explorers, as well as some names here. So interesting to have this format and check it out. The link to the Miro board is in the chat, and also we will include it in the notes when I will be sending the slides. So you'll have this Miro link. You don't have to save it now, unless you really feel like saving it into your bookmarks. Okay, great. So we can see some first post-its. You type really fast. That's so lovely. Like, sometimes it takes quite some time to get even the first couple post-its. Great. So what we have here is want to learn to practice. One of the key topics in the future of service design. It's actually super interesting because ethics and design ethics in particular is the topic for this year's World Usability Day. So it will be all over in October and November. You'll probably see a lot of events around the topic. Critical raising awareness, yes, like it all starts with awareness as well, around unintended consequences, yes, and unintended consequences can be good and bad both. ethical design should be baked into the design process. Yes, this is why it's daily. I agree with this point. Essential, relevant, often not discussed, even sometimes not discussed, but not even thought of. You know, we personally sometimes are, life goes on. A lot to consider. Yes, you will absolutely miss something. It's okay to worry about this. I fluctuate in between the desire of hiding under the covers and actually going and saving the world. That's totally normal. Also depends on my cycle, but that's a topic for a different meetup, I guess. Curious, hopeful, important to be incorporated in the work processes. The term means different things to different people, of course. Necessary to implement, can be exhausting. Yes, advocating is definitely exhausting, sometimes scary. Not enough practice. Maybe you already practice, you just don't know about this yet. And couple last notes before we continue. New in this but interested, want everybody to practice, need more practitioners. Great. So let's see if today we have help some of you to convert into practitioners, or maybe give you the some tactics or suggestions on how to convert other people. And now feel free to keep adding or finish writing the posts that you started. Before we go and continue with Miro onward, I'd like to go to the slides and share a bit of theory around ethical design. So what term you should use, or which terms you should use. There are several terms that are used around in the industry, and like some people call it fair, just, like ethical, mindful, humane. I'm personally not a native speaker. Even though my English is good, I don't really understand the difference between some of them. And I'm sure even if you are a native speaker, still for you might be different. And also it depends on the area, because usually they are combined with tech, with AI, and with design. And these are very good keywords if you'd like to learn more, or just, you know, search for information around this topic, like resources, Slack groups, websites, initiatives. Try these keywords, ed tech, AI, design. Also, LinkedIn hashtags like this can work. One of the LinkedIn hashtags that is super popular is dark patterns, which you probably heard. Okay, how much time? It's been less than 15 minutes, and I already mentioned dark patterns. Of course, we'll mention it again today. That's usually the hottest topic. And if you want your post, if you post something about ethical design, you want your post to be boosted, that's the hashtag to use. So already spilling the bins here. What I prefer ethical. Because taking into consideration like locations, cultures, native, non-native speakers, I had conversations with people pretty much from all continents, well, all officially recognized ones at least, and ethical seems to be the most popular word. So ethical, and since I'm a designer, design is what's the closest for me. I like the definition that was given by 3 authors of the Ethical Design Handbook. So pretty much they try to summarize ethical design into businesses, products, and services that grow from principle of fairness and fundamental respect towards everyone involved. So for me, the fairness and respect are the keywords in this definition, and at least it's easier for me to keep in mind when I'm thinking ethical design. If I need to make some decision, I keep this keyword. Okay, is it fair? Is it respectful? And of course, ethics is a part of philosophy that dates back 2000 years. Even, well, it depends how you count. Can be more if we're like into Chinese philosophy or into Western tradition of philosophy. So we can go like really, really deep with definitions. But at least this is the one that I like, the one that I usually stick to. It's the easiest one I found. And most importantly about ethics is that there is like no manual, no defined how to. There is like no bullet point instruction. And if there is, you probably should test and not trust it from the like first time you see. No one can answer ethical problems for us. And Synod Bowles has this a bit more complicated, I'd say, than the previous book suggestion, the book Future Ethics. He discusses that you need to think through these problems, things for yourself. And usually there is more than one answer, and it is always contextual. So it is never just this one answer, which will answer everything at the same time. You know how this hitchhiker's guide through the galaxy, 42 answered to what? And then you see that, wait, what was the question? So yeah, this is exactly what we will be doing today. We'll be searching answers to some of the questions that I pose, but this will come a little bit later. So the plan for today is to think solo and together, and sometimes we don't have this time for reflection. Let this meetup be the time. Examine real life daily situations. So I'll explain a couple of situations that happened to me and how I approached that, and I'll ask you how you would approach them. And we will attempt at having better conversations, specifically with peers and with business, around the topic of ethical design. So almost every ethics-related event starts with scary stories of big tech companies doing very bad things. So let's break the pattern and try to start with a bit brighter stories. So you might have heard of the startup called Bolt. If you haven't, it's like Uber or Lyft, but it comes from Estonia and now it's spread all over. I think biggest clients are like in Brazil and Africa. And this Bolt app, I'd like to share an example of how they took care of 3 ethical domains in design. And these are the ethical domains that come from Kat Jo. She's the author of the project Ethical Tech, definitely worth checking out. So she defines autonomy, safety, and transparency as 3 ethical domains that you need to take care of when you do your designs. What I mean by this, for example, autonomy. So same in Uber, same in Bolt, you can rate the driver, including less than 3 stars. So the users, the people who are using the app, are given an option to actually rate the driver less. The first time I traveled to the US, and I learned that tips are obligatory, and like if you tip less than X%, then it's well, it's not even a shame. It's just like you're not almost allowed to leave the place. And I was like, okay, that's not real democracy, I guess. I mean, I understand the reasoning behind this, but as a tourist, you travel, you don't know how the society functions, and then you're just pushed and made to do this. So I'd say this is no autonomy example. Like this is the autonomy example. And in Sweden, you don't pay, like you don't give any tips usually, but then it feels like really weird sometimes when you do. So I guess, yeah, it depends on the culture. Another one is about safety. This is an interesting example because Bolt was one of the first ones who officially introduced women-only riding options. This was in South Africa. So for them, it is an actual concern. And then you can have the same ride fare for women-only options, so female driver or the regular, whatever, randomized driver, right? And at first I saw it and I was like, oh my God, like that's really innovative. And then I started discussing it with my friends and the ethical concerns started popping up. And my friend told me, but what if a person sees women only option and decides, okay, so the regular option, like the randomized option, is not safe. So we'll start having safety concerns. We'll consider whether the app is safe at all, whether they would call it for their kids and so on. So that's like very interesting how this whole seemingly, yes, okay, we're adding good to design, we're talking safety, seemingly good solution can then backfire. So the unintended consequences in action, pretty much, the one that posted that we had in Mirror. And then the last one is transparency. So being transparent with people who are using your products. Simple example from Bolt. They have most relevant FAQ like at the top and clearly explained. So all people usually are very angry. Why is dynamic pricing, search, and so on? Like, what is that? So they clearly explain it, very simple English, right on top. And of course, as well, they save time for their support team to explain all of this. But also, this is a sign of respect that they don't hide it somewhere, that you're not just made to scroll pages and pages. However, there is always this but. like is like the mission of Bold sustainable? Is their business model ethical? How do they perform in other domains? Like if I give 3 good examples of how they take care of these 3 ethical domains, doesn't necessarily mean that the company is ethical. So this would require further thinking and exploration, and not like being too fast to judge. Another example is from Hey. I don't know if you've heard of them. I think they're more popular like overseas than here in Europe, but this is the version of Gmail, kind of like it's an email client, mobile app, and also web browser that you can use. It's a subscription, so you pay for it, but then you don't have all the things of like, oh, Google reads your emails, oh, it learns from what we have. Like you're not forced to deal with all these algorithms and so on. They have built their own product, their own platform with big privacy considerations. And this company is self-funded, so they have like no VC pressure, and they openly communicate whatever changes they're making. So you can even influence some of the features that they're building. This is kind of an alternative approach of this Hey.com by Basecamp. Probably you've heard of Basecamp before. However, they have several weeks ago, they have published their policy that they decide to like abstain from any like social problems, concerns. They don't want to be involved in the any kind of like publicity about political events, that they will not tell their opinion on whatever it is happening in the country or in the world, or get behind any movement. It was really like a lot of discussions about this on LinkedIn, a lot of this ethical concerns and so on. If you feel again like reading more in this, I think LinkedIn would be the best source of opinions, maybe Twitter, but then LinkedIn you have at length like lots of information about this to just form like shape whatever it is you think about this as well. Like if it's okay for a company to have this position and communicate it openly, or maybe companies actually have responsibility and should be involved in public life. Maybe they should explain what is their position about issues in society. So there is always, okay, like we're a good company doing a good product, seemingly, but as a whole, here is our position, and it's your attitude. And this is all about ethics. This is all around ethics, and we're kind of tapping into different areas, different spheres of what ethics consists of in a way. And another example is Wise or Transferwise. Again, it's something like Revolut or N26. It's like a bank, a virtual card. And they decided to give this right to be 2,000 of their most active customers to be shareholders and to make decisions with them on whatever it is that the company needs to decide on. So this was just an example of a decision that the company made based on whatever logic, PR, or maybe internal user research that they did. And they also give you an option. So if you want, you can claim this share. If you don't want, it's okay. It's up to you. You don't have to. And I'll be leaving a link here if you want to read on more on this. So for this specific example, like I haven't found any like backfires, maybe yet. Maybe I haven't had enough conversations about this, but maybe you already have something in mind. You know, there is no definite good, there is no definite bad. We don't live in a vacuum, as we all know in the past couple years already. Like we're really interconnected. Yeah, think for yourself and remember that you always have a right to have an opinion. And in most countries, you can also express it. Okay, so let's get even closer to real life situations. We warmed up a bit with the tech companies examples, mostly tech, because this is where like I work, which I touch, and like most of my colleagues are there as well. But of course, it's not only about tech companies. So what I mean by play with the lenses, there are several ways of approaching ethical situations, and let's first dive and then see how else we can see the same situations in a different way. So imagine you get an invitation to speak at the conference on the topic you find meaningful. And this is a screenshot from a friend of mine and also a colleague who sent me a LinkedIn message like, hey dear, how are you? We are planning this product tank this month with interesting topic. And like last time we loved you, this time we want to invite you again. Like, what do you think? Let us know. So imagine you check all the details and it seems great and you love it and you're like, yes, I will participate. But then one day before this event, you find out that the main sponsor is a gambling company. So it's one day, the event is tomorrow. Gambling company, I don't know what's your attitude to this, that's up to you. The question that I have is, what do you do? And to answer this, I'll ask you to go to Miro, and I will switch with you and bring you on. So what we have here are two possible answers. I understand that it's a spectrum and it depends and you don't have enough input information, but let's just, for the sake of the experiment, try and have like only two answers. So on the left, you have yes, I will still speak at the conference and here is why, and please write it on the post-it. And on the right, you have no, I wouldn't speak at the conference and here is why, and please write it on the post-it. And I'll be super curious to hear your opinion. And since it's a real life situation that happened to me, not to bias you, I won't tell you now what I did, but once we have the opinions here, I will tell you what I did in this situation, how we ended up with this specific case of ethics / non-ethics. And of course, feel free to take a second to reflect, or again, like if now you feel like joining from anonymous tab, feel free to press that anonymous tab and paste the Miro link there. It's the same Miro if you haven't closed it. Yeah, I just brought everybody to me, but if you're off wondering, feel free to come back to this first example of invite to a design conference. Okay, great. I can see people started writing. Thank you for posting the Miro link again. Okay, so we have first answers. So in the yes sector and in the in-between as well. Do we have someone on the no side? This is super interesting. Okay. So far we don't, but also the motivations for yes can be very different. And I'm very curious to see what's going on. Okay, great. So I will start reading, and if you need to finish your note, please do, and we'll get to this. Okay, so if there are safeguards in place to help people who could become addicted, then I would. That's super interesting. Something I've never heard before. Okay, I would speak because I have committed to it, but I will let the person know how I feel about this. Okay, I would imagine the organizing committee, right? But maybe the whole audience, like, I don't know, also an option. I would speak, silence doesn't inspire change of attitude and behaviors. Okay. I'd require not to speak in the same session. We'll go out at some point that I'm surprised about this. Okay. As a moderator, I'm already associated with, I might be able to move the discussion in an ethical direction. Okay, already made a commitment. This is also like your personal ethical stance, like making a commitment, right? Audience will benefit from the message. Yes, that's a different standpoint as well. I will speak, but give my own feelings about gambling in a reasonable way. Then we have voice concerns to the organizers to get more consent on their decision and educate myself. very interesting. Like, I love how detailed are your post-its. Like, I'm sure I'll be reading and rereading them after this. That's honestly the first time of me conducting this workshop that I have like really contextual answers and true whys. That's exciting. Okay, so potential for talk to make a positive impact, yes. Use as a teaching moment. Wink, wink. Okay, fantastic. So we have continued to speak because it was responsibility in the beginning, and yes, discuss addiction. That's interesting. Will feel obligated. And it's also interesting how you discuss the feelings, because to me, like, ethics is a lot about, oh, I feel shameful, or I feel proud, or I feel something else. So it's very interesting also how you're talking about this. And then we have a couple of in between, so depends on the topic. If conference is neutral, push an agenda, no. And maybe the gambling company has ethical practices that stands for things. That's also very interesting. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. That's, yes, I will definitely come back to this. We don't have any answers in the no section for what I can see. So yes, we have the yes with many, many motivations. So switching back to slides. So of course, there is no right or wrong, and that we constantly flip between the lenses. And I just want to bring a couple examples from the post-its to illustrate this ethical theories. Maybe some of you are familiar with them. I needed to refamiliarize myself with them because they tend to slip even if I read or heard of them before. So the main three theories is the virtue ethics. So for example, I am responsible, and therefore I will act in alignment with my virtue of responsibility. So this is one of the posts that we have. The traits can be different, can be care, like I care about people who visit, and I care of them having the best experience. And if I know I can bring this best example, I will participate and do it no matter what. The other one is the ontology. So I have these duties, so I act according to them. So I promised, and it's my obligation now. And hence, like, therefore, I will participate in this conference, like, no matter what else happens. And the last one, which we saw also, I think the most in the post-its, is the consequentialism, or this utilitarian position that, okay, so I analyze potential results, and here is what I will do, right? So if at the end, my talk will bring a positive outcome, then okay, I will participate, I will speak, I will moderate, I will make sure that the end result is a positive sum, and audience, participants, organizers, and myself, we all benefit from this, which is interesting because sometimes we tend to exclude ourselves from this equation, but it's also important to remember about ourselves, and that we're not selling our souls. So what I did participate. So my answer is yes as well, the violet yes. First, because why I did it, because it was an all-female panel, and I'm in for supporting female businesses, like female empowerment and all of that. So it was important for me to have this like all-female panel as an example. And this was Product in Tbilisi, so it was a Georgian event. And in my mind, Georgia, I mean, as a country, in my mind, it's not a very okay, maybe it's my bias, like not very like female oriented country, I'd say. So it's good to create this like incidents. And also I knew that I have my opinions about gambling. I have my opinions about ethics. As a moderator, definitely I can change the agenda. So we discussed dark patterns, we discussed ethical concerns, we discussed designing for trust and how people do this in different companies. And one of the speakers was actually from this gambling company. So it was a very interesting presentation, but also we had a fruitful panel discussion after that. If you're curious, by the way, you can search, I'll add the link to it. It's on Facebook. It was a live stream. So yeah, I'll add the link when we will be sending these slides to you. Okay, so about responsibility as a virtue, care as a key component, briefly mentioned it. So I care about other human beings. You can call it users, you can call them human beings, whatever it is you prefer. And I think how my actions affect other people, I help others expand their capabilities. So pretty much that was my stance here. And shaping your moral stance is already an ethical approach. So I hear myself. Oh no, it's not me. Huh, interesting. Okay. So yes, it's a daily ethical approach of deciding what is right and wrong for me and thinking about this. So making a decision, reflecting on it, understanding why you do what you do, why you think what you think, why you do what you do. And the thoughts were inspired by reading Ariel Gersenzweig book. Again, it's like even one more level of complexity into ethical topics. He discusses on how you can develop your moral stance as a designer. And there is even the checklist at the end of his book on, okay, these are the traits that you can develop as a designer. But if you don't feel like reading the whole book, I can actually link my master thesis, which is on a similar topic at the end. And you can see my personal reflections on how I feel I developed when doing this side project. Just check, compare, see, maybe you find something useful for yourself as well. And it's just a fun read. I had a couple of people reading it, and they said it's kind of lighter version of ethical design books. Okay. And then, yes, we build ourselves every day. And responsibility is about asking what choices are compatible with the parts of my identity. And could I be a person who can do this? So the last question to me sounds a little bit, tiny bit dramatic, like, could I be a person who can do this? But sometimes, like, it helps. Like to me, for example, when I was decided to change jobs, the last job I left was pretty much because I discovered new information about the company. The client we acquired wasn't, let's say, what they do did not align well with my values. So I was like, could I be a person who can do this? Well, money is good, but no, actually, really, I can't. So, yep, guided my decision, helped me with this a lot. But of course, I understand I'm privileged to make these decisions in the first place. Sometimes we are not. And if you're interested in more of this lens tweaking, mind shifting exercises, you can also check out the movie called, I think it's called Circle, with Emma Watson, on how she works in a corporation, kind of like Facebook, Google, when we are all connected and all information about us in one social media network / governmental network, and how her choices are guided by her family conditions, by like her sick father, or maybe you're in a country on a visa and like your job depends, like your permit depends on your job rights and so on. So yeah, always keep this in mind. Always keep in mind your privileges, your rights, but also ethics. There is always a way. At least I believe this. I think if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to be a designer. Okay, so the steps to ethical design. I believe in integrity as a professional and as a human. So I don't really do, okay, now my design job is over, now I'm up to being human again, or the other way around. So how my journey will be how I see other people developing, is that at first you develop this capability, you manage to identify the ethical issues, this feeling of uneasiness. This is the first step. If you already start feeling like, maybe we shouldn't do this or that, it's good. Like it's already the first step. The second step is to start having conversations. So you voice your concerns, you raise these questions that you start having. Maybe you don't yet know how to talk about this. I was at this stage when I was, okay, I feel this is not right, but how do I even talk about this? So even trying to shape it in your head is already a step, or talking with a couple people here and there. What we actually started doing in my company now is that we decided that monthly, I don't know if that's the perfect frequency, but we decided to start with monthly. Like we will gather as service designers and we will pick one article around ethical considerations and issues, and we will all read it and then talk about this and discuss. And maybe it will be easier if we select an example from the outer world to discuss it, and then to see how these lessons can be applicable to our daily life. So it's something like 1 hour a month investment for the meetup, and maybe like 1 more hour of personal reflection and reading. But so far, it's an interesting approach. And yeah, feel free to keep in touch on LinkedIn to see how it goes for us. Yeah, this step number 3, and this maybe never ends. I don't know. I'm still on step number 2 and 3. So go through this process, that it's not easy or fast. Doesn't always feel good. Having these conversations, making little changes, making bigger changes, see what you can do. And yes, it is scary, and maybe it will end in very small changes, but at least start noticing them. Even if the result of a conversation is we will add 1 more question to this interview guide, it's good. Like at least I learned to appreciate the little things as well. Okay, so another example, you are in a team meeting, and usually you record all the team meetings that you have, let's say on Zoom. But this time the meeting started, and the host of the meeting didn't ask for the consent before hitting record. So you started the meeting, you're chatting, you're talking, and then sometime in the middle, just suddenly you see this, oh, your screen is being recorded, you are being recorded, and you're like, so the question is, what are you like? So would you say something to the host or the team about pressing record? Would you record? Would you say anything? Would you act anyhow? Maybe how you would feel? And we will switch to Mira for the answer to this one. I will be bringing you right here to me as the second situation right here. So seemingly simple example, every day, sudden recording during an average team meeting. Maybe it's okay for you and you would still say something. Maybe it's not okay and you wouldn't say something. Yes, no, and why? How would you react to this situation? And I'll give you a couple minutes here to fill in post-its with the context, and feel free to add as much or as little as you want. So again, regular team meeting, just like average, every like weekly, whatever it is, meetup you're having with your team. Okay. I kind of enjoy Google Anonymous more, like Anonymous Rhino, Anonymous Platypus. Like I really learned more English words by just like reading this Anonymous Animals. And here is like guest writer, guest designer, guest artist. Yeah, right, okay. I'm curious what will be the first service to start with plants. I think plants are very interesting. Or maybe it's just like me with embroidery world, my new hobby that's helping me incline towards botanical embroidery. Oh, nice. We have the +1 to plants, and smile of the day, I was an anonymous quokka. That's good. I don't even know how to read that, but that's great. Yeah, and I'm listening. There are even podcasts about embroidery, and I'm listening. Oh, plants in Australia are so different. Then I Google and like, they are really so different. It's so crazy. Okay, great. So couple minutes of chatter, and now let's see the first answers that we have here. First, last, all of them. So the situation of you're in the meeting, usually you record, but this time no one started recording, and then without asking for consent, they suddenly press record, and ta-da, here you are in the process. So the answers are yes, I would say something towards the end of the meeting and express my concern about it being recorded without consent. Yes, I would at least ask, especially if the norm is to ask consent before doing so. Give a heads up to the person recording, assuming it was a mistake or maybe they didn't mean it. This might give them a chance to clarify intent. Then we have, say, a direct message first. If the person doesn't react, we'll kindly remind. It seems we forgot to ask permission to record. Let's confirm that. This is very good, polite answers we're having here. Very interesting. I'm not judging you, no good or bad answers, but for myself, I take them as good. not only for this specific situation, but also just like for me developing as a human being and my communication skills. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Looks like this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is being recorded. I missed the heads up about that, so I wanted to give everybody a second to make a choice about that. Yep, given a choice, autonomy, something, respect. I can hear the same lines, so people should know so they can take action, go off camera, for example. Usually say, hey, I noticed you're recording, so are we recording for a specific purpose? Just wanted to check in with the team if that's okay. I think we can pretty much compose a how-to guide about like ethics here, like based on this Mira board. It's great. Or an article, which we'll be summing up after this meetup. And then we have a couple of no answers, and here is why. So until thinking about it in the context of the session, wouldn't think to mention anything. That's interesting. Think I wouldn't say anything for regular meeting, and also it's a work situation during paid time. This is also some of the answers I got similar to this one. So in this type of workshops, if people say no, it's usually either I didn't even think about this, which is perfectly fine. I haven't thought about many things before. Even selecting case studies for this workshop is hard because what would you consider ethical and non-ethical, right? And another one is I would feel shame. So some people, it's perfectly fine. Like some people feel shame to say, to interrupt, or they feel shy, or it's just not a thing to interrupt in the middle because you will be interrupting someone else to say that, hey, we are recording and maybe there is some flow going on. Great, thank you for the answers. If you feel like finishing another post-it that you have, please do. Super interesting to read it and reflect on this more. And I'll be switching to the slides to let you know what I did. So I decided to speak up. It felt weird. I think the idea for me to write a personal message would kind of make more sense. But also I know that the host is the kind of person who reads out loud the messages. So maybe it would make the situation even weirder for me personally. So it depends really on the culture of the company that you have. So yeah, it felt weird. I did it anyway, little things that up. For us, it became a great reminder. Like I became like this not nice person in a way. And until the end of this project, almost every time they would say, so now we hit record. Is everybody okay with that? And I was like, okay, whatever. At least they're explicitly asking for consent and everybody knows. Felt weird. I live, you still see me here. Project ended in May, all good. And I'm pretty sure everybody who participated also noted it for themselves. So yeah, maybe one little action managed to impact more people. Okay, so whether you decide to say something or not to say something, it's important that you notice your intention and consider it for yourself. So the whole activity of consciousness is relevant. So you build it from smaller steps, then you move onward to bigger issues. So for example, for me, a big thing here, I lived in Estonia for a couple of years, moved to Sweden. I remember first 2 days, I was shocked by diversity on the streets, people of all ages, wearing all kind of clothes, all kind of like, I don't know, skin color and everything. It was shock because Estonia is a very mono-nation country. And even noticing that I'm shocked, like noticing that, oh my God, now I notice. Like, well, it's one thing to see people online, right? And have this friends from different countries. It's one thing, like I used to travel, right? Be digital nomad, see different people all the time. But actually being here and noting that I notice was part of this like ethical shift for me as well. Okay, so we have the anonymous quokka in Mira. That's fantastic. That's something I will cherish as well. Okay, and then talking to business and peers about ethics is the next kind of chapter that we're gonna cover today. For me, it's work in progress. So I will share some thoughts, some stories of how it is done, what are the current approaches, but at least from my experience and workshops like this, people as a group tend to come up with much better options. So I hope we will do the same. And let's see where we are. So main points I believe about talking to people about ethics, it's not us versus them, we're in it together. Everybody actually wants sustainability, everybody wants to be ethical, it's just not everybody really thinks about this or is actively concerned about this. So I believe in the good in people. Again, that's my approach. So rule number one, start talking. Rule number two, keep talking. The more you talk, the more people hear the buzz, the more they are thinking about this, the more they can match. Like if they're interested, if they start having concerns, they can think, oh, I know she's the one. I will go talk to that quirky girl who mentioned ethics the other day, or I'll go talk to that guy, to that like whatever quokka I saw the other day in Zoom, Office, Slack, and so on. Even sharing an event, oh, here is the ethical design event or ethical tech, like would you like to participate in it together, could be interesting. And if the final one is the one that gets the most ooh, boo, and so on, if the conversation about money can solve ethical issues, go for it. If you can explain why we should be ethical by talking money, to me, it's okay. I take utilitarian stand in this. The outcome, yes, we go for ethics, and also it helps business. Fantastic. Only, hey, let's be good people, our karma and so on doesn't always help, doesn't always have to help. You can have a different opinion about this, of course. That's fine. That's why today we are thinking together, not I'm thinking for you. But at least you know that this is one of the positions and stances. So some examples. Example for Hypergiant Industries, Will Griffin. I linked there an article about this. So going one level deeper, the situation that they had a Japanese conglomerate client in the US. And this is around like trains and railways. Like the Japanese company wanted to implement predictive maintenance. So pretty much it's like all AI based, reading the data, composing, using all of this. And using all of this data, they wanted to save money and cut the staff. And then the Hypergiant Industries came in as consultants to help accelerate this case, and they actually started investigating. So they questioned the request before going deeper into this. So when they questioned, of course, the first thing they thought is, well, people can be laid off, right? So this is the first thing when you think, oh, robots will take our jobs. What about people? They went one level deeper. So in many cases, this Japanese company, they used minority and diverse suppliers to help build the infrastructure. And it was actually a part of the binding contract that they had with the US government, that because they can use these suppliers, the minority and diverse suppliers, they can actually build the rails and so on. So the idea of getting rid of this would not only mean, okay, people lose their jobs, but also they will pay a lot of fines, they will lose a lot of money and so on. So the end result was to pitch to this Japanese company about policies that, okay, ethical standpoint is this and that, but there are job programs and they push this training programs, and you will not be able to function as a company in the US if you don't comply with this. So this money talk, policies talk can be kind of like one direction which you can take. I don't know if you would feel confident doing so. It requires a bit of preparation, of research and so on. But in some situations, this can be the case. Like, for example, what works for us here in Europe is that there is the Paris Convention about 1.5 degree decrease, that companies pledge that, yes, we will decrease our CO2 emissions, and therefore we will help the world not to become the hot place. I just saw heat waves announcement for New York area, and yeah, pretty much this Paris Agreement kind of tries not to prevent, it's already happening, but at least to decrease the impact and the frequency. So this is one of the possible policies that we use up here, is if you can link it somehow to this Paris Agreement. Doesn't mean necessarily you're golden, but at least you're on your way, so it's an option. Maybe in your industry, there is something similar that you could use. Another one, of course, talking dark patterns, second time mentioned, I promised the last one, because usually ethical events are around this. So a bit more practical standpoint. So this will be the example is from UXP to dark patterns data set. Link this, and Paul Bog talked about it's one expert on ethics, like one of the experts on ethics, who has very easy to understand and read books, explained how the specific dark pattern called sneak into basket can damage the whole business. So pretty much the idea about dark patterns and fighting them. Dark patterns are the tricks that companies use to trick customers into buying more. Pretty much there is no good way to say this. It's just like tricks for you to buy more. There are various. It can be buy now or one left. Especially I love when handcrafted things on Etsy, which is only one thing says one left, and you're like, yes, it's always one is left. But this one, sneak into basket, actually still happens. I'm quite surprised, is when you buy something and it automatically adds one smaller, cheaper item. So in this example, you buy something for almost 22 pounds, and then they add something for £1. And seemingly, oh, it's okay, £1 here and there. If they do it for, say, like 100 like bags, cards, whatever it is, they will earn more, seemingly. So the first sight. The way Paul Bog describes it is that he goes behind the scenes and he explains the hidden cost of dark patterns. So there are these barriers in communications, like siloed departments and so on. Maybe it's something that is happening in your organization as well. Maybe you don't have this. If your organization is larger than 300 people, I would be very surprised to learn that you don't have like any siloed departments. So how he explains it is that, okay, so UX team optimized the conversion rate, or added one more item into cart, people are buying, paying more, money goes up. However, people see it and they're like, wait, I didn't buy it. Why do I have it? Do I actually need it? So then the costs increase. So first you lose customer trust, because they're like, wait, you're tricking me. I can feel it. I can see it. Why do you do this? And then you can go on Twitter and check that they do it for other customers as well. So the more customers lose trust, the more money marketing needs to spend, like marketing, PR, all of that. Support team also suffers. Okay, maybe you earned £1 on this one item, but actually handling this support request is about £2-3. Again, you can say the same in dollars. I don't know what are the numbers for the US, saying pounds just because Paul Bog used pounds in his UK examples. So yeah, customer calls, customer emails, it all costs money to process. So company loses money again. And of course, handling returns. What do you do with the item that is being returned? Can you resell it? Can you reuse it? Number of returns increases. People who process these returns, you need to pay money to them as well, and so on. Not fun at all for the company. So this is something that if you feel like talking more and explaining more to the company, and say you're working with interface, you see dark pattern being implemented or going to be implemented, this is the type of conversation that you can have with a manager, type of conversation you can have with someone who is higher up, who actually can see like the business more, or go even up. Like it depends how far, like what's the hierarchy in your organization. It's just like the way the logic works, and it's not only for the sneak into basket, like it's pretty much for all the dark patterns that are up there. Similar logic can be applied. And if you want to learn more, like I would link this Paul Bog blog, and he also has a couple of really nice speeches that you could check, or the books. Okay, and the last one is from Ethical Explorer pack. So there are various packs, guides, cards around ethical design, ethical tech. And these are the example questions from Media Network. So they were developed, widely spread. I'm not infringing the copyright rights. They actually say, please steal, please go, please use. And it's the same with any kind of material that I'm delivering now. Like if you can somehow reuse it for your company, for whatever design team you're having. I'll be super happy if you do. So these are the examples of questions that are going to help you make the case. So for example, how might ethical thinking impact long-term company value, right? So you're going from this level of, okay, appealing to the futurist, or how it relates to our company values, because sometimes companies say, okay, these are our values, but what do they actually mean? What do they mean for the customer? What do they mean for the employees? So this is your chance, like, to relate, to link, and to work more on this, because now, like, everybody has values. All the companies need to have this page at least. If you want to talk like to a maximizer, to people who care more about, okay, what's the money, what's in it, how might ethical thinking be a revenue driver, right? You can talk the pure costs, you can talk the dark pattern talk. How can it help attract talent? If the company has a better, say, brand, right, then it's easier for you to attract talent. So all of these questions, again, worth checking out the whole guide, but also you'll have these slides. And what is interesting, what I'd like to dedicate some minutes to, is to answer 3 doubts/concerns that people have when making the case for ethical design. So these doubts I took from this Ethical Explorer pack, from the guide that they composed. And it's like 3 concerns that people have when you are, yes, let's do ethics, let's do ethical tech design, let's respect and be fair. And then you have someone telling you, but 1, 2, and 3. So we will now switch to Miro, and we will go like first example, then second, and then third situation, and try to come up with answers to these concerns, to these doubts. And in the end, we will review the answers that this Ethical Explorer pack has given in their guide. So going to Miro, and I will be bringing you all to me. So the first doubt, the first concern that people have is ethics sounds so philosophical and not actionable, and it's going to be hard to get traction internally. So what would you say to a person who approaches you when you say, oh, I've been to this event by SD and New York chapter, and there is this small thing that we could do, or maybe we just be more ethical in our approach, and the person tells you, philosophy, not actionable, God. So what do you say to them? Please write on the post-its, add your thoughts. If you don't have anything, that's fine. Maybe you'll need more time to reflect. Most importantly, that you start thinking about this. And if you can come up with some suggestions right now, I and will be super happy to check them out. Okay, so we have first answers coming up. So trust is very valuable. How much money do you lose from lack of trust each year? This is actually interesting, because if you are following the trends that companies are releasing, like Gartner or EY, one of the main trends for the past couple of years was trust, or something around trust, like ethics, trust, and so on, which means that this is a thing that will persist. And even now, like, if there is some startup that is dealing like with trust, security, and so on, there is a lot in it. Another option we have is, I hear that that's an interesting beginning. Here are some real life examples of how other companies have taken action on ethical issues. Real life examples, yes. And sometimes even to jumpstart the thinking, like some events that we're having internally, for example, some workshops around this, we start with example, then we discuss it again, and then we can come up with something else. You don't want to get sued. Yes, absolutely. I think it's like very legit concern of being sued. I understand your concerns. Used to think this way before, linking to personal experience. Yes, but there is so much increasing attention in other companies. It's a big trend. We'll have blind spots and increase our risks. Risks is another interesting point as well. And I will actually link one more now that I'm thinking. The Rupert, he's specialist specifically around risks and analyzing it. Very interesting professional. So another answer, are there competitors who are practicing ethical design? What are they doing? Competitors talk, focusing on the cost of ethical lapses. You must do your homework on ways that affect your company, both good, follow ethical ways or bad. Work toward one goal, ethics considering what matters to others. Setting KPIs. Ethics can have KPIs. It's also quite possible. Okay, requiring compliance, GDPR, CCPA, other pending privacy regulations, hot topic. We need to make sure we're ahead and show uniqueness, brand identity, talk great. Then we have listen to the person concerns, ask about the fears, talk the fears, yes. Short, long-term implications of the decisions, great. So we're talking utilitarian here. And then we have the think about simple decision-making frameworks. What if everybody acted this way? This is actually interesting. This is some from Artifact. They have this the cards that you can use. I will give the link a bit later, and they have more prompts and questions like that. Or yes, how would we feel if our next action ended up? There are more questions like this, easily accessible. And if you can slip this into a conversation, that's fantastic. If you already do this, like bonus points to you. I find that some of the questions from the cards and packs are a bit off for my organizations, because they're just like, is it a joke? Why are you asking this? That's so weird. But sometimes you just need to rephrase, to use the language that you use in your organization so that it sounds more natural. Absolutely. Okay, and then yeah, and they were great. Okay, then we have, thank you so much. Let's move to the next one. The next one is my favorite one, which I personally hear the most, is we need to move fast. Now isn't the time to slow down. So there is this belief that ethics slows things down, and sorry for unethically bringing you to my board and changing, but just to be sure that we have time to cover the last bits and pieces and to fulfill my duty and obligation of 1.5 hour event. Oh my God, these ethical decisions all the time, every time. Oh, and now I look like Avatar. Ah, it's beautiful. I should rename, but I don't know any Avatar names. Yeah, okay, it's okay. Pocahontas is fine. Great, thank you for the first answers that we have appearing here. Lawsuits slow things way down. Fantastic. Yes, I've been reading some book about why most couples in the US divorce in August or early September. And I was like, I have no idea. Like not most, like 20% or something, or like 30%, like big chunk of couples. And then it appears that kids leave the nest, they go study, and then it takes several months to process the divorce. And only when it's final, like it's already August or September or something like that. So yeah, I guess maybe even next year, sometimes years, it depends. I have read recently a book that genuinely states it, like consider lawsuit costs if you want to divorce, like before you divorce. Okay, so we have the risk mitigation is worth the time. You're okay. We're spending a lot up front only to redo everything when we hit an ethical privacy issue and we have to start over. Yep, and it's possible to hit an ethical privacy issue. The more we live, the more possible it becomes. Let's be proactive and not reactive to it later. Absolutely. Dealing with real consequences of an ethical issue takes a lot of time and money too. And here are some examples. Yes. The timeline, how to explore ethical issues, also good. And this also offers that you'd like to be kind of responsible or one of the responsible, which is interesting, and be careful with this and take it on the responsibility of it for yourself, because then you can be, that's like the ethical one. And the rest can kind of relax because, there is this person who takes care of it. But then again, great productivity is great in this. And I'm super happy that you already have this stance. Yep. Yep, absolutely. So here, I have no idea how to read it in English. Semicolon, two dots. Yeah, anyway, so completely change the transportation technology while the hare is sleeping at the side of the dirt road. Yep, moving slowly, slow steps, but constant. That's pretty much how meditation works as well. Okay, so bring more examples of companies that your reputation and trust have been affected so much because they optimize for moving fast. So this is the question, if you bring up good examples or you bring up bad examples. And it's also super interesting for me. If it's not life or destination, most likely have time. And if it's a life or destination, we don't have time, let's deal with this and then deal with other things that can come up. Fantastic. Thank you for adding your answers here. And then the last one, and I will unethically bring you here to follow me. Taking responsibility for this sounds like a full-time job. And what would you say to a person or group of people who tell you that, oh, maybe we need to hire chief ethical officer? This is actually a position. Like, there are specific positions in some companies. There are even job boards with like ethical positions. I will actually link this. It's all human, all tech is human. They have a Slack group, and they are posting their ethical vacancies, like ethical tech, ethical developers, ethical data scientists, and so on. In my perfect world, there will be no need for ethical, like something, like if it's possible, like everybody's considered, like everybody's concerned with ethics and considering when they do something, so we don't have to create special positions for this. But then again, that's the perfect world. We absolutely don't live in a perfect world now. Okay, so the answers we have here, actually we had already a couple of suggestions in the previous post-its. That you can actually be the person who will take responsibility, maybe not full-time. We had a suggestion before about taking smaller steps. So absolutely, if there are regular smaller steps, like workouts, meditations, this whole principle works. Drinking water, like if you drink 8 glasses of water a day, it's not the same as if you drink like 16 liters of water like one day and that's enough for the whole week for you pretty much. So absolutely, can be tackled a little bit at a time, and if the team is all on board, yes, it's important. Stakeholders buy in, agree with that. We have hiring someone full-time, also this full-time job accompanied by a set of standards. That's, yeah, and that everybody have their own role in this, I would assume, to follow with this person. Great. And then ethics depends on many viewpoints being considered, so let's not supplement what needs to be considered throughout the firm with 1 or 2 viewpoints. That's great. Yep, absolutely. I think that we gave better answers than the one originally in the guide. And the one in the guide, or the first one, is okay, yes, ethics sounds philosophical, that's why I need your help, and let's be together, invest now and prepare for what's next. They also mentioned GDPR, so the policies that you covered. We need to move fast is talking about trade-offs. That's the same about technical debt. So if we don't face them now, we'll eventually need to deal with them. And taking proactive approach, here it shines again. And taking responsibility for it sounds like a full-time job, that this shouldn't fall on the shoulders of one person, and that we should be in this together because we are in this together pretty much. And if you want to read it in more details, I'm linking the Ethical Explorer pack here, and these slides will be available to you as well. So feel free to get acquainted. We will also be sharing the mirror link with you, so you can read and reread or even add something, you never know, to the board. So bonus tip, the main part is over now. Bonus tips, keep the boost folder. So for me, the boost folder is something where I put good examples of ethical companies, and also I add there my little wins around ethics, even if they seem like really tiny for other people. An example for this, so first example is from my former CEO, Andrei. I spent months persuaded that customer journey is really important. And then finally I got this one message that like, okay, This project will postpone it and put big accent, like big emphasis on customer journey. So this was my little ethical win because I really believed customer journey was very important, very ethical, every step to consider. I saved it. I just screenshot it. You can have it online, you can have it offline, can have it on your phone, just like this boost folder with good examples. And if you feel really low, you can come back to this, review it, and like, oh, nice, like that's interesting. Maybe get some inspiration with this as well. Another examples on the right is from Memrise Pro, is the app I use for language learning, currently Swedish, not going as well as expected, but okay, whatever, I will get there. And what they have is they add in simple language the boring bit, but it's about your cache, so keep reading. And then they explain in very simple terms what they mean by their privacy policy. And they even add this super tiny emotional, you made it to the end, congratulazioni. And I cannot read the last part, but I believe it's a very important bit. But yeah, pretty much that's it is an ethical part. They explain in simple terms that's ethical, they care, they respect, and they also understand that you're a human being. You are tired of reading all of this. So yeah, making it easier for you. My next steps, and if you would like to add something to them, like pretty much all of them are in the Miro board. We can go there real quick for the two final exercises, well, / activities. So first, educating myself. You also had it on one of the post-its, that educating yourself, learning what questions to ask, when to ask them, when it's appropriate, what kind of questions. So I will link here a couple resources that are useful. And of course, there are more. Feel free to reach out or Google yourself. Google, Yandex, YouTube, whatever it is. I'm not limiting you to one social church. Okay, another one is when to ask. So for example, okay, we have 2 project meetings a week. I'll make sure I'll ask at least one question that bothers me in this one meeting. And then self-reflections on what I make. So I do self-reflections weekly, monthly, sometimes monthly, sometimes weekly, depends. Planning on incorporating them more starting this autumn. Then focus on the beginning reflections. Beginning meaning I know the KPIs for the projects. We have definition of done. I have personal development goal. This is something we started doing with our team, talking not only what is the development that we wanted the company to have, or this project, what impact for it to have on the company, but me personally, what do I want to have with this project? And sometimes our projects can last for like 4 years, involve 20 stakeholders. Yes, impact for the world, for the country, but what about me? So it's important. Don't forget to include yourself. It's also ethical. Human-centered design, you're human as well, right? So yeah, and what I also do, write a letter to my future self. So I do it at least at the beginning of the project, and then like on how on this project to go, and then I check, like reality check on the reflection and so on. So reflection can be at the end of the project, can be your retro. If you don't have formal retro with your team, at least do it for yourself. It happens. And for me also, next steps are important, because I notice, okay, we do the retro, but we don't really do the action steps, or okay, what changes are we gonna make? So this is also something I started doing. And yeah, check what was my performance, what I did was my role. So this, and the last one, which I will ask you to like go to Miro, like what you find relevant, what would you like to add to do this. And if you don't have something to add, or you, I don't know, maybe like you want to just add a reaction or some smiley, and right next to this you will see the kind of check out point. So how you feel about ethical design now, if you got any new information, or if you had any ideas, or if you feel like, oh my God, I'm already ethical, that's so great. So yeah, let's jump to Miro real quick for the final couple minutes of our session. One of the boards is about some activities and actions that you can do. If you feel like reading more or screenshotting them, find allies. Yes, absolutely. Yes, there are fantastic podcasts about this actually, and mostly about diversity, but also can be applicable to ethics. Yep, we have more about speak up about things when they concern you. Always be mindful of people impacted by the service ecosystem. Great. Yep. So, and then, yeah, if you feel like getting more here, we'll be checking on this later on, and including all of this in the final slides that we will be sending you. And yeah, in a couple of words or maybe in full sentences and the poems and whatever it feels like, how do you feel about ethical design now? What changed in the past 1.5 hours for you, if anything? And if you feel like having more conversations like this, also feel free to reach out to me. I can connect you to more people who are interested, because we are out there, you are out there, you're interested, like you have your community here as the New York chapter, which I'm super thankful. And you can't imagine how smooth they were in the whole preparation, and I'm so thankful for that as well. So if you're a speaker watching the end, the beginning and the end only, no, these guys are fantastic. And of course, if you are now listening to this and you feel like sharing, this is not my main job, right? I'm design ethics enthusiast. I'm sharing my side project, my passion. Super happy to discuss with you. Great answers we had today. This is my reflection personally, the first time I have this much input of personal feelings as well. You know, how people not only think about ethics, but also feel about ethics. This is something I'll be definitely reflecting on more myself. Some post-its that we have here is love the reflections, very inspiring to do more. Thank you, and you're welcome. So important, absolutely. Happy to have found allies and happy to know lots of people care about ethics and are brave. Yes, even small things, even thinking, changing your like little steps, you know, like we talked, slow, just every day, keep going, keep thinking, keep walking, notice good things around. Noticing good things is hard. I don't know how it was for you in the past months and months, but noticing good things. Duty to serve beyond profits and growth is about making a better world for all. Absolutely. We can make a better world, maybe sometimes even make profit out of this. That's also interesting. Good reminder to make a habit of reflecting, moving slow to move fast. Yes, thank you. I feel like after taking this vacation I had, I feel more like it's like a new year refresh in a way, you know, more. This year I think post lockdowns, people are also having more resolutions like this. So maybe you can include, you know, reflections as a part of your post lockdown resolutions. Great. And then we have a chat comment. Thank you for the brilliantly relevant conversation. Thank you. That's very lovely to hear that. I'll add this into as a screenshot at the end as well. Great. So I think we're good here. If you have any questions, past reflections, feel free to do so. And if no, I'll stop sharing my screen. And just thank you so much for this time. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for our monthly event. And thank you for those of you who've stayed on this whole time. I know it's lunch for some, we're all in different time zones, but appreciate happy evening also for the other time zones. But yeah, thank you so much, Netta, for sharing. Are there questions for the last couple minutes?
Maybe Natalie, how was it for you?
Even better the second time around. I think this is something that we all need to be talking about, and the more we can find community and talk about this together and figure out, share resources, share best practices. I think it's a space that is going to need more and more attention as we grow as designers in general. I think it's becoming more and more relevant that we understand ethics and understand how we have a seat at the table as decision makers and influencers, and it is our responsibility as much as anyone else's, and we can be that catalyst for positive change in this space.
Absolutely. That's you put it very eloquently. Like when I say, I'm like, yes, stop hiding under the blanket. That's kind of my phrasing of it. But I love how you phrase it. It's like it's so empowering. Like definitely. And thank you so much again for enabling this. I'm so looking forward to the article as well that we're gonna have as a result.
Yes, thank you, Jeannie, for writing that up. There will be a Medium article in about a week. We will share the recording on the YouTube channel. Look out on our social media and all those places for us to share the things from this if you want a refresher. So thank you, everyone, for joining. And we'll see you, maybe some of you in person in September if you're in this New York City area. Maybe we'll figure out how to have video for those who are not in this area as well, so everyone can be included. But really appreciate everyone for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, wherever you are. Thank you.
Nada, thank you very much. I know I didn't say anything, but I was so busy taking screenshots and taking notes.
Absolutely. I loved your, like, I saw your engagement. That's great.
I know, and there's like an entire transcript. Did you know there's a transcript?
Oh, I should have said, and now people are dropping, which is fine. I'm going to start to introduce at the beginning of these events that there is a live transcript option. This is brand new that we're trying. A point was brought up, let's figure out the data privacy as well. Always unintended consequence. It's more accessible, yet do we want the data saved? But anyway, yes, there's a transcript if you're watching new, trying to be more accessible for everyone to be able to engage with our events.
Do you know if that transcript is copy and pastable?
I didn't make it savable. I thought maybe that would be one layer of
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know if you can. This is brand new. Literally just today is the first time.
No, I loved it. So I'm taking screenshots. So at least I can
oh great.
Cross-reference.
Yeah, if anybody knows, actually, I would love to talk to you in LinkedIn about anything you know about Zoom privacy and data policies, because I think this is something that helps with accessibility, but I also want to be mindful of where we're saving this information. So.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you all.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Touch soon. Thanks.
All right.
Nice to see
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good one.